We are Team 19. I'm Bianca, and this is Kennedy. Our topic is rising water temperatures and oxygen levels in the Great Lakes. We chose this topic because we are concerned about the rising water temperatures and how they affect aquatic life.
I'm team number 20, Jolie Ryan. My topic is the correlation between plankton and fish population in the Great Lakes. I chose this because I want to know the correlation between how they affect each other in their lives.
All right, I have a question for you. Is there a certain amount of plankton in the Great Lakes that can increase to a dangerous level?
There's not a certain amount of plankton that can affect fish badly, but if too many plankton that are bad can arise in the lakes, they can create toxic compounds that affect the fish and poison them and that eat them.
Okay. My question for you is how does how much of plankton affects the other species in the Great Lakes, the aquatic life?
The fish species in the lakes are all affected equally throughout prey and predator fish and are not differentiated between how the plankton fall and rise.
So it doesn't matter which species it is, they're all affected equally?
Yes.
Okay.
Interesting.
And a question for you. At what point would temperature harm the organisms in the lake?
So once our graph showed that once the temperature gets to 60 degrees, that threshold, it becomes more dangerous for aquatic life, especially cold water fish, as well as some plants.
Very interesting. And if oxygen decreased, what would be the outcome of the lakes?
Well, since it's a domino-ish like effect, one can't really exist without the other. We would have to solve climate change first before we even know what to do with this one, like one problem after another.
And another question?
All right. Another question would be, why does rising plankton have value?
Rising plankton has value because scientists believe that when they get to a certain point, it will reflect a certain ecosystem in the lakes as it had 200 years ago.
Wow, 200 years ago.
200
200
years.
years ago.
Wow.
Whoa.
Whoa.
My question for you is, if plankton in the Great Lakes increased rapidly over the years, what might be the outcome?
Well, like the last question, it would reach to a point that scientists have graphed the lakes at 200 years ago into a faster pace.
Wow.
To a faster pace this time?
To a faster pace.
What if it was at a slower pace?
If it was at a slower pace, it would just happen slower.
Oh, makes sense.
And for you, how much carbon do the lakes absorb each year?
They absorb over 3 times more carbon in their sediments than all of the world's oceans combined. So yes, even though oceans are technically bigger, lakes do absorb and carry a lot of carbon.
And they release it, don't they?
Yes.
And that was going to be my second question. How much do they release each year?
It's not calculated yet. And based on our research that me and my partner did, we couldn't really find anything that said how much was being released. So we just assumed that there was no actual data leading to that.
Yes.
Interesting.
I have another question for you.
Yes.
If other fish species decrease in the plankton population, what would happen to other aquatic organisms in the Great Lakes?
Well, if they all decrease, nutrients and other populations would also decrease as the amount of availability would go down and less populations would be able to live.
So some organisms need plankton to survive.
Yes, they are actually the base food source for survival in most populations of the lakes.
Wow.
Are plankton and algae related?
They are. Zooplankton are related to algae in a way that they also create nutrients through photosynthesis.
Wow.
Okay. So they just float at the top like everything else?
Yep, they float to a certain level and then they don't exist behind that level.
Oh,
So just the surface level of water?
Yes.
Okay. The last question we have for you is, what other possible outcomes that would you think you would have for you?
Well, obviously, if my hypothesis was correct, the populations would decline fast, and there'd be a worse habitat because plankton do provide such an important role in the ecosystem.
Oh, alright. So, like you said, that a lot of fish count on plankton to survive.
Yes.
But we're
Yes.
done.
Now that we think
We
about
put
it,
the images
was our
already.
hypothesis correct?
Sadly, no, it wasn't.
I don't know how to do that. I
Our
looked at it.
hypothesis was
That's not
if-
cool.
When water temperature rises, the oxygen levels would decrease.
What
But
about
no,
Michaela? She's not doing
the
anything.
oxygen levels did decrease as long with the temperatures.
My hypothesis was also not correct, as plankton population did rise in the past century, as well as fish population stayed about the same.
Yeah.
Thank you for talking with
Why
me
can't I
about
just go?
this
It's
topic.
okay.
It was very interesting to hear about.
You're welcome. I had a lot of fun talking about this. Thank you for also coming with us on this amazing show platform we have. It was a lot of fun.
We most definitely enjoyed you talking about the different types of, especially since I asked questions about if plankton and algae are related and all other stuff. And you talked about how your hypothesis was wrong, and you talked about ours. So I really enjoyed how you told us about it.
Yes.